What if the scratched, incomplete, half-forgotten toy in a box in your garage, the one your mother kept because she could not quite throw it out, is worth more than the car parked next to it? 10 of these ordinary toys have sold for hundreds, several for thousands, and one of them is the most mass-produced toy line in history, while most examples are worth about the price of a sandwich. Let's find out whether it is in your house right now. Here is the truth almost nobody tells you. With toys from these 2 decades, the toy itself is often the least valuable part of what you are holding. The cardboard is the asset. The box, the card, the instruction sheet, the little cellophane window nobody thought twice about. Those routinely carry more of the value than the plastic inside them. Because everybody kept the toy and almost nobody kept the packaging. And nobody ever taught you to look for that. You were a child. You tore the box open, which was the entire point of it. Now, let me be honest with you, the way somebody who buys whole houses has to be. Your toy is almost certainly not the pink rear-loading Volkswagen bus that Mattel never actually released, the one that sold in 2022 for $150,000. Only 2 of those are known to exist, and they survived because employees took them home as keepsakes before the rest were destroyed. That is not going to be in your garage. But the distance between a $2 toy and a $2,000 toy is much shorter than people think, and most of it is decided by things you can check tonight without leaving the house. Number 10. The little wooden people from the toy farm. Small, peg-shaped figures with painted faces, the kind that came with a barn or a school bus or a parking garage. If you have a bucket of them, your first thought is probably that they are the definition of common, because every household with children had some. That instinct is right about the plastic ones and wrong about the wood. The earlier figures had solid wooden bodies with the features printed on, and they were replaced with all plastic versions once safety standards changed. Wooden-bodied figures in good paint, and the vehicles and buildings that go with them, sell steadily to collectors, while the later plastic ones remain what they look like. Here is your test tonight. Tap a figure against your teeth or a hard surface. Wood gives a dull knock, and plastic gives a bright click, and you will hear the difference immediately. Then look at the paint on the face, because printed features that have survived without chipping are what the buyers actually want, and the loss I see most often. The complete playset gets split up, the building goes to one grandchild and the figures to another, and a matched set worth real money becomes 2 boxes of bits. Number 9. The drawing toy with the plastic gears. A set of toothed plastic wheels and a pinned frame that let you draw looping geometric patterns, or the light box with the colored pegs, or the toy oven that cooked with a light bulb. Nobody thinks of these as collectibles. Here is what that misses. These sold in enormous numbers and were used until they broke, which means the survival rate for a complete one is very low indeed. The value in this whole category sits almost entirely in completeness. Every gear present, the pins, the paper, the original box with the graphics intact. Here is your test tonight. Count the pieces against the list printed on the box lid or in the instructions. A complete set with its box can be worth many times a set that is missing 3 gears, and missing 3 gears is the normal condition of every one of these I have ever bought in a house clearance. Number 8. The stunt motorcycle with the ripcord. A plastic motorcycle with a rider in a white jumpsuit launched by a hand-cranked gyro that you wound until it screamed and then released. Ideal made these across the middle 1970s, and they were everywhere. Collectors will pay over $100 for the stunt cycle alone in good working condition, and a factory-sealed set with the box in decent shape goes for $300 or considerably more depending on the cardboard. Here's your test tonight. Wind the crank and see whether the gyro still spins the wheel with force. Then look at the rider's helmet and cape, which are the parts that always went missing first, and check whether the launcher's plastic gears are stripped, which they usually are. Number 7. the pressed steel trucks. Heavy yellow steel construction vehicles with real moving parts built to be left outside in the rain by generations of children. If yours is dented and rusted, you probably assume it is scrap. The heavy-gauge steel ones from these decades were made to a standard that no longer exists, and collectors of these actively prefer honest wear to a repaint. A repainted truck is worth substantially less than the same truck with its original paint worn down to bare metal. Here's your test tonight. Look inside the cab and underneath the chassis, where paint does not get worn away by handling. Original paint has a slightly uneven, thin quality, with the pressed steel texture showing through. A repaint is thicker, glossier, and even, and it will have run slightly into the seams. And the loss I see most often here is somebody restoring one out of kindness. A weekend with a spray can have what a truck is worth. Number 6. The 8-inch superheroes with the cloth costumes. Action figures with rubber band strung bodies, cloth outfits, and plastic boots made in the 1970s under license from the comic book publishers. If you have a shoebox of these with their capes missing, you have something worth checking properly. The common characters loose and undressed are modest, but the rarer figures from these lines have brought thousands at auction, and one particular villain figure set a record at $76,700. A sealed figure from one of the science fiction licenses sold for close to $3,000. Here is your test tonight. Check which character you have before anything else, because the spread between the common heroes and the scarce villains is enormous. Then, check the elastic inside the body by gently flexing a limb. Perished elastic is normal and repairable, and it matters far less than which face is on the figure. Number 5. The military figure with the scar on his cheek. A 12-inch posable soldier with 21 moving parts, introduced in 1964, and the toy that gave us the phrase action figure, because no one would buy a doll for a boy. The early ones matter enormously here, and so do the accessories, which were sold separately and lost immediately. A complete early figure with his correct uniform and equipment is a serious object, and the prototypes and factory samples from the first year sit in a different league altogether. Here is your test tonight. Look at the right cheek for a molded scar, then look at the back of the head and the lower back for a copyright date pressed into the plastic. A 1964 date is the one that matters. Then, check the thumbnail, because on the earliest figures, the thumbnail is on the wrong side of the thumb, which is a genuine manufacturing quirk and one of the fastest ways to date one. Before we get to the top 5, there is something worth stopping on because it explains this entire list. The toys that turn out to be worth real money are almost never the ones that were treasured. They are the ones that were bought, opened, played with for 2 weeks, and then abandoned in a cupboard with the box still under the bed. The toy somebody carefully preserved in its packaging is worth a great deal, but there were never many of those, and that is exactly the point. What actually decides the number is a short list of signals. The date pressed into the plastic, the country of manufacture, whether the packaging survived, how long that particular version was in production before it was changed. All of those are readable in a minute, and that is why I put together a small guide called Reading the Marks, where I go through the molded dates and the packaging tells that separate a $5 toy from a $5,000 one. So you can read a piece before somebody across the table reads it for you. It is linked below if you want it, and that is the last you will hear of it. Now, back to the list. Number 4, and this one is not a toy at all. It is the writing pressed into the plastic. Turn almost any toy from these 2 decades over and look at the underside, the inside of a limb, or the base. You will usually find a raised or sunken line of text that nobody ever reads. A maker, a year, and a country. That text is the single most useful thing on the object, And it is more reliable than the box because the box can be swapped and the molding cannot. It tells you which production run you are holding, and production runs are where all the money in this hobby lives. The same figure made in one country in 1 year can be worth 20 times the identical-looking figure made 2 years later somewhere else. Here is your test tonight. Photograph the molded text rather than trying to read it in poor light. Then type it exactly as it appears, including the country, into a search alongside the toy's name. You will have an answer inside 10 minutes, based on completed sales rather than on hope. Number 3. The small cars with the red striped tires. Die-cast cars roughly 3 inches long with a red line running around the sidewall of each wheel. The red line was used for about the first 9 years of production and then dropped, which turned it into a dating mark by accident. Ordinary Redline cars in played condition are worth a few dollars to a few tens of dollars, and I will not inflate that. But scarce colors, early castings, and anything unusual climb hard, and the prototypes that never reached production are where the headline numbers come from. Here is your test tonight. Look at the wheels first. A red line around the tire puts the car in the earlier window immediately. Then look at the base for the year and the country, and look hard at the color, because the unpopular colors of the day are frequently the scarce ones now. Nobody wanted them then, so few were made and fewer survived. Number 2. The box and the card. This is the one that quietly costs people more than every other mistake combined, and it has nothing to do with the toy. A figure still sealed on its original card can be worth 20 or 50 times the identical figure loose in a box of toys. Not twice, 20. The same is true of a boxed vehicle against a loose one. Collectors are buying proof that it survived untouched, and the packaging is the proof, which is precisely why so little of it exists. Here is your test tonight. Go through the loft and the garage for flat cardboard rather than for toys. Look inside old suitcases and under beds, because packaging was flattened and stored far more often than people remember. And if you do find a carded figure, do not open it to check the contents, and do not clean the card. And the loss I see most often, without any question, is somebody cutting a figure off its card to let a child play with it. That is a completely reasonable thing for a parent to do, and it has cost families more money than every broken toy combined. Number 1. And it is almost certainly a toy you owned, or your brother owned, or one you can picture in a box right now. The small action figures from the science fiction film that came out in 1977. Here is the part that surprises people. That line ran for years and sold in staggering numbers, and the great majority of loose figures are worth somewhere between a few dollars and 20. Fame is not value. The most recognized toy line in the world is rarely the valuable object, because the whole world already has one. But here is the turn this entire video has been walking toward, and it is the same lesson as every item tonight. The very earliest figures are a different object entirely, and the difference is often measured in months of production. One of the first figures released came with a cape made of stiff vinyl. Children found it unconvincing, so the manufacturer replaced it almost immediately with a cloth version, which means the vinyl version had a very short life. Loose examples in good condition commonly reach into the high hundreds, and one graded example, still sealed on an early card, sold in 2018 for over $21,000. So here is your final test, and it is the smallest detail on this list. If you have that particular hooded figure, look at the cape. Stiff, shiny, plasticky vinyl rather than soft fabric is the one you want. Then, if it is still carded, count the figures pictured on the back of the card, because the earliest cards show only 12, and the number on the back dates the card as precisely as a postmark. 12 on the back. That is the difference between a card worth a few dollars and a card worth a great deal more, and it takes 10 seconds to count. Every single item tonight came down to the same habit. Not the condition, not the memory, not whether it still works. The date in the plastic, the packaging, and how briefly that exact version existed before somebody changed it. So before you clear out a single box or let anybody talk you into a lot price for the whole garage, do this first. Turn it over, read the mark, and believe what it tells you. If this made you want to go straight out to the garage and start turning toys upside down, do me one small favor and like the video, because that is what tells me to keep making them. And the next one lives behind the subscribe button, which is this exact treatment for the ugly little figurines on the shelf in the spare room. Then, tell me down in the comments, what is the oldest toy still in your house, and who did it belong to first? You? A brother? A house you helped clear out? I read all of them, and the story of who played with it is half of what it is. One last thing, and I do mean it. Do not sell a single toy before you have looked for the cardboard. Number 1 is probably in your garage right now. Go and find it.